Hey everyone, Chris Myers, President of Chicago Young Republicans, here with you today. Today I've got my special guest, Marilyn Smolenski, who's running for Illinois 55. So wanted to go through our normal video series where we get a chance to sit down and talk to the candidates about the issues, what they're passionate about, and what they're going to do when we help them get into office. So Marilyn, thanks for being with me today. Really appreciate it. First off, could you tell our watchers today, who is Marilyn? Where do you come from? What are you about? Who is Marilyn?
Okay, so first I'd just like to say thank you for having me. I mean, beautiful scenery, great weather, and of course a great host, so I really appreciate you having me. So a little something about me that I think a lot of people don't know, or most people don't know, is that I'm originally from South Louisiana. I was raised in Louisiana and Texas along the Gulf Coast of Mexico, and I'm also a graduate of the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Go Cajuns. So you may hear some of those Southernisms or a little Cajun come out every now and then. So that's just my personality. I am happily married with 2 kids, live in Park Ridge. My son is a sophomore. I've got a daughter who's in college now. And but at one time I was a single mother, and going through college, being a single parent, I can really connect and relate to a lot of the day-to-day issues that many families in our community face.
Very cool. So what is it that brought you to Chicago?
My husband. He's a lifelong Chicago resident, Northwest Side. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Great. That's awesome. So now being here in Chicago, obviously you're in a district that is very important for us to win, so that way we can help take back the Illinois House in the fall. Tell us a little bit about why you're running, why now. What is it about your race that is passionate for you?
Well, the main reason why I'm running is because, a lesson that I've learned continually throughout my life is if you want to see change, you need to take that first step. You've got to change things yourself. And now that my children are older, like I said, I've got a son who's 15, a daughter who's in college, I really have that time to be able to give back to the community. So that's why I'm able to get involved now at this time.
Excellent. That's great. So when you get elected, tell us about 2 to 3 things that you want to get in and you want to work on and you want to change. What is it that you see down in Springfield that we need to do different?
Right, a few things I feel we really need to focus on are true fiscal responsibility. We really need more transparency in Illinois government and accountability for our elected officials. You look at what's going on downstate with sexual harassment, with abuse of power, with just overall misconduct. And that's not only just in Springfield, that's just across the state. And I really feel like we need to be keeping their feet to the fire. We need to hold their feet to the fire. We really need to make our elected officials more responsible for what's going on.
And it's kind of interesting, like Speaker Madigan, his whole staff is basically disappearing as a result of sexual harassment cover-ups. And why has the speaker been quiet about it? That's
I've asked the same thing about why has my opponent been quiet about it. He's been a very vocal cheerleader in the past of Mike Madigan's and a vocal cheerleader of some of these individuals who've been accused of sexual misconduct or just of in general misconduct or abuse of power. However, he has not called for them to step down.
Huh.
So
yeah, it's kind of interesting, trying to circle around the wagons and protect their own.
Right, protecting their own, exactly. And that's something that I want to bring forward and say, listen, I don't care if they're Republican, a Democrat, an independent, if someone is accused of misconduct, we need to find out what exactly is the what's going on behind that story. We need to have that exposed, and we need to hold people accountable.
Totally. As you think about the fiscal situation, what are some thoughts you had as you looked at some of the budget and kind of what went on, hearing some of the party members from both sides talk about, where we're at fiscally as a state?
Well, I think what we need to be doing is looking at every single line item. I mean, we look at larger budget numbers instead of looking at everything. And we really need to be taking every single thing into consideration across the board. The numbers right now with the budget are fuzzy at best. And so, I just think we need to delve a little deeper into it.
Yep. You talk about fuzzy, and we kind of find it funny that the Thompson Center was included in last year's budget, the sale of it, which is a good idea, and then it was actually included in this year's budget too. So does it count for last year? Does it count for this year? What are we doing here?
I think it's counted for 3 years.
3 years now.
If I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So it just needs to be taken out. And that, again, that's what I'm saying is we need to be looking at every single line item. And does that make sense to even have it in there and be using that as revenue?
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. And then we also think about, from a fiscal situation, some of the tax hikes that have been proposed. And I know many of the people on the Democratic side are getting behind a tax regime that would hurt a lot of Illinoisans. So what are your thoughts on some of those?
We look at the progressive income tax hike, right? And it's being dubbed as the fair tax hike. But what's really fair about it?
Yeah.
One of the proposals starts at $17,300 as being where they would
Rich,
already.
right?
Yeah, and how is that fair to someone who only makes $17,000 that you're going to up their taxes? That's not fair at all. So I think that the difference between what the Democrats are doing is they get that little verbiage in there, that kitschy phrase that catches people, and then we as Republicans kind of get in the weeds with details, right? And people glaze over. So we really need to find a way to better connect with our constituents and with our voters so that they can understand what our point that we're trying to get across in a better manner. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to do right now with my social media is getting things out just at a different manner than what we've done before.
Perfect, yeah. And for those watching, as we think about some of the tax regime, here in Illinois a couple of years ago we had a 3.75% flat tax. Then when the Democrats jammed through a tax increase on us, we're now at 4.95%. And some of the proposals on the progressive income tax, like Marilyn mentioned, the lowest one for those making about $17,000 a year up to about $200,000 a year, rich by Democrat standards, takes it all the way up to 6.25%. So if you look at that, that's like an 80% tax hike on the average working class Illinoisan.
Right, exactly. And that's only going to chase more people out of the state.
Yep.
It's only going to make more businesses leave, more individuals leave. And what's going to happen? Our taxes are going to have to go up even more.
Yep. So we also could even get into mortgages and what's going on around property taxes. But rather than shifting into that, why don't we get into now a little bit, I'm curious to hear, tell us a fun story or two from the campaign trail. So as you're out connecting with voters and potential constituents, what are some fun things that you've had connecting with people?
I've met a lot of people. What's really great about knocking door to door and going through the community and going to different businesses and different events is that I'm just able to meet so many more people than what I normally would meet. And so this has given me a great opportunity to be able to connect one-on-one with individuals throughout the community. And then that also helps me to, when I'm learning about them, I'm learning how to better represent them. Because even though I'm a Republican, I'm not just representing Republicans, I'm representing everyone in the community. I'm representing every business in the community. So just being out there and speaking to people has really been a wonderful thing. And we haven't taken any time off since October, even through the primary. I didn't have a primary, but I'm still out every day.
Yep.
And we're still out every day now, knocking on doors and speaking to people. We've got a lot of volunteers as well. I've even met some of my volunteers, and even my communications director, Greg, I've met through the Chicago Young Republicans group. So,
that's great.
Yeah, so we're having a really good time with it and learning a lot and just developing our strategies and getting to know the community better.
Perfect. So now as we wrap up, I would like you to talk to the group here about, as they think about Marilyn and your campaign, what is it that you want them to take into their homes, their friends' homes, the conversations that they're having with their neighbors, their colleagues? What is it that you want them to know about your campaign so that way when they're going into the ballot box in the fall, that they think about relative to you? And then if you could also help us, how can we get involved with your campaign? Share that with us, that'd be great.
So another thing that I've heard going door to door about my opponent is that he isn't responsive. So the non-responsive, reaction, especially if you have a hard-hitting question.
Yep.
He is not getting back to people, or he will literally just smile, turn, and walk away. He's not answering people's questions, and that brings us back to the accountability of the office. So I just want to be as open and available to everyone as possible. So again, hitting the streets, hitting those events, going door to door. If someone sends me an email, if someone makes a call to the office, I am personally calling them back and personally emailing them back. Whatever I can do to connect with people. I am here as a citizen legislator. I am not a career politician. This is not something I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to try to get in and make as much of a difference as I can and just help my community and help the state at whole. And again, I met my communications director and several of my volunteers through the Chicago Young Republican, so I really appreciate your help. We can always have more people coming out. If you know people in the Des Plaines, Elk Grove, Park Ridge area, anyone who's in District 55, if you could share our information with them. And please visit our website. It's www.marylandforstaterep.com. We're also on Instagram and we're on Twitter, so we'd love for you to follow us and help share our information.
Perfect. So you guys heard it, www.marylandforstaterep.com.
Yes.
Get out there, check out Marilyn's website. Please help. We do need money and donations to help Marilyn's campaign. So get out there, check it out. So that's it for this segment, sitting down with the candidates. Appreciate all your time. Hopefully you enjoyed checking out the Chicago skyline while I got this great opportunity to talk to Marilyn. So thank you all for tuning in.